Now, according to the recently released crime statistics, arguments, misunderstandings and road rage are the leading causes of murder in the province. It's accounted for 872 murders in the first 3 months of this year. For more on this, I'm joined by Stan Bezuidenhout from IBF Investigations. Very good evening to you, Stan. Thank you so much for your time. Road rage, misunderstanding, provocation, some of the leading causes to murder on the roads, really concerning. I mean, we heard about this when the crime stats were released and unveiled. But as an expert witness, what have you found? What have you encountered?
So first of all, I think we need to understand that almost every crime trend or any crime trend is normally a manifestation of the society we operate within. And while it's true that we've seen an increase in certain crimes and an increase in road rage, the more important question is where that's coming from. And from our own perspective, personally on the road, and as far as some of the cases I'm investigating is concerned, we certainly see an increase of the same kind. But obviously we'd have to delve into the dynamics that cause people to respond in this way and what drives them to change their behavior.
What have you found as perhaps some instances and scenarios which have essentially led to somebody losing their life?
Yeah, so one of the instances that I'm fully aware of is in a situation where I believe it was a pilot, was traveling with his child in the car. There was a confrontation that came of the road rage, and the pilot exited his vehicle and actually approached and shot another road user in view of his child. So we have these escalations that used to be in the past, that used to result in fistfights and people assaulting each other, and we are seeing a trend of that becoming a little bit more aggressive and most certainly even deadly in some cases.
What do you think could be some of the leading factors as to why we're seeing such a trend on the rise?
So first we want to look at the things that motivate people to act this way. The first and most obvious thing is frustration and stress. Whenever you have an increase in the stress environment, it could be social, it could be economic, it could be personal, it could be people losing jobs, companies failing, etc., causes general frustration and stress. And because people are already emotionally charged, those emotions get triggered more easily. Then there's the issue of anonymity and dehumanization. It's a them versus us scenario. It's so easy for us to speak of them. As a good example that any South African would know is either we're talking about people in taxis, taxi drivers, or we talk about those people in their BMWs or their Mercedeses, and that creates a sense of them not being human but being the devices. Then, of course, perceived threats are an issue. So, we are starting to see such a deterioration in general road, let's call it kindness, and in general, behavior of people, that as other people are starting to push their way past traffic on the yellow line or not stopping at red lights, and now we have load sheddings and traffic lights are out and people are not stopping. There's this perceived threat and provocation all around us. Then there's displaced anger. I'm frustrated and angry because this and that is not working. And so we can carry on. Yeah. But then there's something interesting, and those are the cognitive biases, the fundamental attribution errors and things like that, that drive people to get confused, especially if they become emotionally charged. But now we've got to ask ourselves, what are the things that lead to a decline in respect in road rage? Why are we acting out that way? And one of the things is, if we look at our environment, the law enforcement environment, it normally starts with a lack of swift or effective law enforcement. We see people getting away with murder, literally getting away with murder on the roads. And then there's a reduced deterrence. People don't go to jail for these things, and people get frustrated. What's the point? Because you can't report them. Everybody's doing them. And then they start losing trust in the system. And with that diminished trust comes a perception of inequity and of unfairness. And the more we get frustrated by that, we're back at the frustration and the stress. And ultimately, it leads to weakened social norms. So it's okay for us to act in certain ways because we see it. It becomes normalized. Everybody's doing it. And it's almost like a gateway drug leading to more serious drugs. We have kind of these many gateway crimes, not stopping at stop streets, not using indicators, not wearing seatbelts, speaking on cell phones. And then we escalate. And while you're on the cell phone, you're speeding. Then while you're on the cell phone, you're speeding and overtaking. So you frustrate another person. And that's the unfortunate thing. It's kind of a breakdown in society, really. And in order to try to resolve and address all this, I think it's going to be a much more complex socio-political effort than it is simply a case of saying, let's be more abrasive with law enforcement, write up more fines, catch and jail more people. I think it's just going to cause more tension. It's kind of a self-feeding, let's call it dinosaur of human nature. And if we don't act soon, we don't act decisively, we are going to see this increasing ever more, of course.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the escalation from the lower level to the extremes, which results in murder. What can other motorists do, those who may be watching, or perhaps one finds themselves in such a situation where perhaps someone may be speeding behind you, after an incident of whatever may have happened at the traffic lights or whatever the story may be, and there is no common courtesy within the motorists? What evidence can be gathered at that point so that we can indeed start to see people being arrested?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, I can relay an actual real-world event. I was on duty as a police officer once, and I saw a road rage incident in front of me. I saw who was the obvious aggressor, and I saw who was the obvious victim. But I actually stopped the victim. And this guy was, of course, rather upset that I stopped him. Why do you stop me? Because the other said, hang on. First of all, I stopped you to save you. You may be right. The other person may be wrong. But he's already irrational, already aggressive, and therefore already dangerous. Now, that person pulls out a firearm and shoots at you. Now, I have to explain to your family after you pass away that you were, in fact, right. So the first thing I want people to know is that you cannot win a road rage incident by becoming more aggressive. The ideal scenario is to withdraw from it, to elevate yourself above it, to let the other person get their way past you, get in front of you, or move on. The best thing people can do is to get dash cameras. It's become a normal thing. Everybody has access to them now. If you don't have a dash camera available and you have a passenger, you can have them record with a cell phone to show the activities. And then more importantly, you can take your cell phone, put it on, say, a WhatsApp message to your wife, your father, your mother, your colleagues, and to read out the registration number, the date, the time, the place, the direction, and the road you are on. So I'm on the N1 heading north, just after Beaufort West, about 50 kilometers from Three Sisters. There's a white, whatever vehicle in front of me with this registration number. The person did the following, because then you have records and evidence that can be persecuted and pursued. But if you simply try to go on social media and rant and rave and complain about people, and it's very dangerous to pick company names, because I myself know that I've seen vehicles that look like some of my clients, trailers on trucks, for instance, involved in incidents, and then I phoned the client and it turns out they've sold that trailer and they don't even own it anymore. So you've got to get the registration number, you've got to get a description of the driver, whether it's male, female, a large male, somebody with long hair, short hair, and perhaps a description of the car and any identifiers, damaged offenders, stickers, anything you can to verify that. But I can also tell people that it's actually very difficult to prosecute people without proper evidence, because if you are the complainant, if this matter does actually go to court, you'll have to go and testify, and people must decide early in the equation whether they want to invest that much effort in this. And quite frankly, if you're not willing to, you're actually part of the problem. People should understand that you must stand up, you must resist by taking the right actions, collecting the right evidence, and being willing to go to a court of law and say, these are the activities I've seen, this is what the person did, this is what I did to try and withdraw from the situation, and this is when and where and how it happened and what was involved. If we start seeing those cases slowly processing through the courts, then perhaps ultimately we can try to change behavior on the roads a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Sound advice indeed. Bezuidenhout from IBF Investigations.